everyone, and welcome to the Procurement Summit meeting. My name is Sandra, and I will be moderating today's call. Our speaker today is Alex Toporovskiy, Procurement Engineering Business Partner, CT and Service, Philips Healthcare, presenting 10 tips for successful cooperation with suppliers. We will turn to the presentation in just a moment, but first I want to go over the web conference instructions. Everyone is currently in mute so that the background noise does not become distracting for the other participants. To view today's presentation as the screens change live, you may go to the link that was sent to you in your reminder email. Once in there, you may click anywhere on the page. Everyone see the pop-up with the option to make a comment? Feel free to ask questions by clicking on any slide, and we'll make sure all of your questions are answered. For the newer participants in the group, it might be useful to review some of the main benefits you can take advantage of as a member at no additional charge. First are the live monthly web conference meetings, which you've already dialed into today. I hope you find these useful, and we have an excellent lineup, which you can see by going to our website's schedule page. Second, we do record all of these, so if you are traveling or stuck in another meeting, simply log in at your leisure, and the full archives of past meetings are available to you with a number of interesting topics. Third, get to know the other members. By logging in, you can see all of their profiles, and we are glad to make any introductions if wished. Fourth, if you are wrestling with any key issues or decisions, we strongly encourage you to reach out to the other members. Also, our site makes it very easy to post questions. The seniority and experience of your fellow members makes this the best possible forum to get advice from others who have probably dealt with the same issues and can give you sound advice on what worked and what did not. Fifth, we really encourage site visits. If you have not visited others' offices to have a great discussion on best practices and see their facilities, please do so. You can log in to see the other members' companies and cities, so feel free to reach out, or, as mentioned, we are happy to make introductions. Sixth, we are also generating executive summaries of each meeting, including the key takeaways and learning nuggets, so that you can reference them after the meeting and put them right into action. Seventh, our members are very busy, so we started a service where we pick out the top 6 most interesting articles among thousands at hundreds of sites to keep you abreast and ensure you don't miss the key ones. Lastly is our Book of the Month summary that you can either read or listen to as you commute. Each month we will be selecting the most interesting book, then summarizing the ideas, so within minutes you can absorb the key takeaways. There are many other benefits, of course, but I just wanted to highlight some and keep a lookout in your inbox for a number of these each month. That takes care of the housekeeping items. If you'll just give me a few moments to now pull up the speaker's presentation and introduce him. Okay, all set. Now, before I turn the call over, I would like to tell you a little bit about our speaker today. Alex Toporovskiy was born in the Ukraine and immigrated to Israel as a child along with his family. He relocated to the USA as Philips Cleveland Purchasing Site Lead. After 2 years, he moved to the Procurement Engineering Department and is currently responsible for O2C and NA, as well as Procurement CT and Service. Alex grew up in Israel and accomplished multidisciplinary BA from Haifa University and Practical Engineering from Amal College. He has worked in the food, semiconductor, and medical industries. Alex, thank you so much for being with us today. Just say next when you wish the slides to advance, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Sandra. Good afternoon, everyone. We can move definitely to the next slide. All right, so this is a short, but I really hope will be good agenda for everyone, and I will try to accomplish it quickly so you guys will have enough time for questions. I will start with some few more comments related to my story. So, Sandra, we can move to the next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, as Sandra mentioned actually, I was born in Ukraine, and then my parents moved to Israel when I was a child, so I actually grew there, and I worked in food, semiconductor industries, as well as medical before I moved to U.S. I actually work in very good companies in my career so far. I got very lucky with this. And these companies are Vishay, Ron Microelectronics, and now Philips. I can say that actually by moving to US, this is a kind of dream that I always wish to myself. And I'm glad that one of those dreams, if you can achieve even one dream that you have, it's already big success. Indeed, I moved to Philips Cleveland as a purchasing site lead. It was very challenging in the beginning, and then after I learned more the culture, then it became much easier, especially because if you understand and you really adjust yourself to the culture of the place that you located in, then you can do your job much better, especially in procurement, since we are talking about multiple suppliers in different areas, and therefore it's very important, but I will discuss about it a little bit later. I apologize, guys, for my voice. I got called during this Thanksgiving weekend. In Cleveland, it's every day is a new day. You can wake up to sunny day and leave the office while you have a winter storm. But this is okay. I still like it, excuse me. So let's start. Next slide, please. So I think, you guys probably asking why he's telling us about his story. Well, why it's so important? Because my story is actually a multicultural story. In some cases, I moved by the choice. In some cases, nobody asked me and I moved. But now, when I'm in a position that I'm leading procurement team, it's very important to understand who are your real partners and how to build successful relationship with your partner. Therefore, I decided that this topic for today will be the top 10 tips for successful cooperation with supplier and how it starts actually. So we have to understand the culture. This is very important. You can see on the right guanxi. This is a Chinese symbol. It means relationship. In each and every country, you have your own culture. And in some cases, people don't really say that there is a difference, but there is always difference. Even if we are talking about, let's take as example, the old Soviet Union that now divided by several countries. Even now, each one of them, and not just the language, they have their own rules, they have their own way to show respect, to show disappointment. Therefore, it's very important when you build your relationship with suppliers, you have to understand a little bit more background rather than just the company name and who are the people, and culture is actually help to connect better with the suppliers. If you are the customer, it doesn't mean that supplier is owe you. Also, in some cases, and I can tell you based on my experience, in some countries, there is actually very nice promotion that you can see everywhere, and I'm talking about Middle East, that customer is always right. Some people may agree to that. Some people may disagree. Probably this is right if you would like to keep your customer. However, you still need to be tactful with this statement because customer maybe is probably mostly right because he is the customer. But on the other hand, if you want to have a real partnership, you have to respect your supplier. So therefore, I really recommend always show respect and listen, also regardless of the culture difference. In some cases, something that may be very weird to you, you always take yourself, put in another seat, and try to think what they think about you now from their side. Because there were, like a penny, there's always two sides. Be prepared with basic information before the meeting. As I said, the basic information about culture, for instance, when you're going to countries in Asia, you have to understand a little bit more how to behave even in the restaurant. It's not something that regular, because, for instance, in Asia, the most successful business meetings and agreements happen in the restaurant after the meeting with the customer, supplier in the formal meeting room. New culture is always a journey. I can tell you that specifically for me in the United States, when I just came, it took some time to understand. For instance, for me, I can tell you a very straightforward example. I learned how to listen better. In U.S., specifically in U.S., you have to listen to people, not just because they're saying something, but you have to listen, even if you have to let them finish, even if they say something which maybe sounds to you wrong, you always have to let them finish. This is a simple act of respect. Also, I can tell you in other countries that I visited, if you want to say something or you hear that somebody's saying something wrong, people can simply cut you. And this is normal. This is normal in that specific country. Try to meet more people with from different cultures as well as countries, and try to learn. By meeting people, it's not just to read the book. Also, it's also important. Don't understand me wrong, but when you meet people, when you actually have this face-to-face experience, it gives you much more added value. Next slide, please. Set a clear expectation. So it's very simple. With your supplier, even like with your employee that you just hired, what is the most important? Even during the interview stage, you're trying to set up expectation. Same here. When you start new relationship with supplier, you have to have clear expectation. Of course, in some cases there are unexpected scenarios, and this is very normal because we cannot predict everything, especially in procurement work. But therefore, we have several options how we can manage it better. So I would recommend create a checklist. Your checklist have to include everything, what you would like to cover, and try to keep supplier focus on specific subject that you would like to cover during this meeting. When you meet first time with a supplier, be clear with your request. This is actually, I believe, one of the most important meetings, because if you will be very honest and straightforward with what do you need, then your supplier will get clear understanding and will be able to respond whether they can provide it to you. In many cases, in the beginning, during the meeting, we may hear multiple promises, and we may also promise by ourselves a little bit more than we can do. My recommendation is to be more straightforward, direct, and also let supplier to be direct with you. Listen to their expectation. And I can tell you, so based on my experience, I always telling suppliers that I'm working with, please don't try to satisfy me with the nice words or nice commitment. This is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for two simple things. Number one is I'm looking for direct relationship, which means I want to be surprised, maybe in my birthday party, but home, not during my working day. And therefore, I would like to build working, but also open and friendly relationship that will, will surprise me maybe from positive standpoint, but not something that I didn't expect from negative. Describe company standards. Each and every company have their own standards. Includes payment terms. I'm always telling suppliers that it's very important for you to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but I can commit for one thing, that I'm going to work with my purchasing department to make sure that you will be paid on time. We all know that in many cases there are several unexpected scenarios because of typos or errors, but it's very important that payment terms will be agreed and also covered by contract, so it won't be changed after some time. And because once we start changing, I don't think that it's healthy environment. We should maybe in some cases react to issues that we have, but we should try to stick to the contract we have. Make sure you commit to pay on time, as I said. Describe your organization chart and clear contact details. In many cases, when we meet with supplier, we can share, okay, my name is Alex, I am the procurement lead, you are the account lead from supplier, but this is just in the beginning, right? Because there are many other departments that part of your company that will work directly. Let them work directly. Therefore, you have to share the clear contact list and agree on the escalation route, proper escalation route, so there will be no emails and phones without proper direction, and it will always go to the right people. And one of the key things is define rules and responsibilities. Rules and responsibility, this is very standard expectation within the company. I learned that rules and responsibility have to be created with supplier as well. Something that maybe sounds reasonable to us, not necessarily reasonable to the supplier, especially in situation when we have a culture difference. Therefore, you have to set up clear rules and responsibility, and by setting this, you will actually create a team environment, because you will explain that this is our rules and responsibilities, but we are working as a team. Quality, very important. Quality drives almost everything. Without good quality, I don't think that any company will be able to survive. And therefore, you have to set your quality standards in details, and maybe you have to have specific people in the first meeting that will help you to set these standards, but it needs to be discussed in the beginning. I also believe that each one of us know better than anybody else our own problems. Self-evaluation, probably this is the bad thing that you can say about yourself or about your company or about your product. Although feedback is also very important and it's given, but my point is you have to be honest and describe your ongoing or potential issues that you have. Includes example. Because in the end of the day, if you will not share it in the beginning, it will create some unexpected risk, and therefore the next point is agreeing the risk and mitigation. So my recommendation is that, for instance, if you would like to design a new product with new supplier and you have your own design with some type of issues that you can share based on the experience that you had with this product, it's good to share it as well. Let your supplier know what problems you have and trust on their professionalism to address your problems. Because if you will continue thinking that you know better, then probably they won't be able to help you. Next slide, please. As I just said, listen to professionals. You know, in many cases, and I can tell you, especially in Philips procurement 4 years ago, we changed our logic here. And we told in one of the big summit events with our suppliers that we would like to listen to you. We want to hear from you your ideas, how we can improve the quality, how we can improve the productivity. And I can tell you that it helps us dramatically to be better. Now, first of all, our suppliers feel that they can speak very straightforward when we have a problem. And we appreciate when we receive this feedback from supplier, and we actually match this feedback from supplier as a feedback from our customer. Because, you know, guys, if our supplier will be open and honest with us and will tell us in which areas we have some potential issues, we may avoid it together, and then we will increase satisfaction of our customers. Therefore, their feedback is very important. You have to be very straightforward with supplier. I think that, you know, suppliers, when you dictate, it's not the same when you work as a partner, because I believe that in several cases you do have to be clear with what you need, but my point is there is another way. Don't just dictate what you need, work as a team. Gamba. That's why I'm saying to have face-to-face with suppliers. You have to visit the place where the value is created. This is very important. Not just by the phone. Also, in some cases, you know, you can call suppliers, you can speak with them, you can create very nice atmosphere and even manage dialogue that will create a list of expectations, but you still have to visit them. When you visit supplier, when you understand the manufacturing environment, when you see the people, you will be much, I would say, clear about your future expectation. But bottom line is, you have to have face-to-face. Next slide. Think like supplier. So remember when we discussed about the culture defense, I said, imagine that you think what's strange, these people when there is a culture difference. But on the other hand, you know, they think exactly like you. Therefore, it's always important that whenever you ask any question, you put yourself in their chair and try to answer yourself even before you hear their answer. This is very highly recommended based on my experience, especially with suppliers from different countries. Don't ask something that you won't do to your own business. I give you an example. For instance, you, in medical environment, it's even not allowed to speak about. But I can tell you that there is a difference between medical, semiconductor, and food. For instance, medical, we are saving life. I'm proud to work in a medical company and be part of that. Therefore, the regulation is much more aggressive. In food, it's different. In semiconductor, it's different. Don't offer something that you would not, that you don't want to hear that somebody will offer to you. Simply like that. Think about. Never offer something that you don't want to hear that somebody offered to you. Always think what is the bottom line of your job. Here we are saving lives. Therefore, simple components that you may buy with a shortcut, not according to the rules, may actually destroy something that someone else trying to create. Therefore, always stick to the regulations, stick to the rules not just of the company, but also rules of the countries that you are working in and regulation that's in this place. By thinking like supplier, you will not waste time, because in many cases, when we don't, we're just trying to dictate something that we want. But if we will really think about a supplier, and we will really think why the supplier is pushing back or may push back, it will save our time. You will understand the rationale behind it, and then it will be much easier to actually do not waste time. Respect supplier, but don't forget that you are the customer. So, you know, guys, I tried to explain during the last few slides that how it is important to understand and partner, like build friendly environment, work as a one team. But there is always but, you know, you can work as one team, but in the end of the day, we have, as a customer, our own revenue that we have to achieve, same as supplier. If there will be a situation, and in some cases they are, you know, they're not perfect people as well as suppliers. There is a probably perfect customer because everybody wants them. And therefore, in some cases, you have to, you know, change the rules when you see that rules and or actually expectation that you created in the beginning are not exist anymore. Then this is the time to remind again that indeed we are the customers, and indeed this is the set of expectation that we created together and we have to follow. Next slide, please. Be honest and direct. You know, I can tell you that in many countries it's appreciated, in many countries also it's not. When I say be honest and direct, is be honest, yes. Say what you need, but always in tactful way. Be tactful. Don't be too much direct. Understand where you are located. I can tell you from my experience, several years ago, I used to speak with one of the suppliers located in China. It was actually in the beginning of my career. And then I called supplier, and the supplier tried to explain me why they cannot make something on time. Well, it actually wasn't their fault. And I still didn't accept this answer because I knew what would be the impact for the company that I'm working for. So I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And then in the end he said, "Sir, I don't want to speak about anymore." I was shocked. How come, you know, supplier can tell it to your customer? And then after I analyzed it, I realized that I probably went a little bit too far. I called and I apologized, and it didn't really change too much at that situation, but at least I think that while we continue work together, it was completely different. It is okay to show happiness and disappointments. We all human. Supplier could be disappointed as well. Build level of trust, like a partner. Team, always, like one team is very important. Supplier will be able to help you with your goals, same as you to supplier. Recognize your mistakes. I just gave you an example with a supplier that was in China. It's very important to recognize your mistakes. This is fair to expect same from your supplier, but it's much better than just move forward. Because if you won't just move forward while you both knew that there was a mistake, this mistake will happen again. you have to understand what was the root cause for this mistake and agree together how to prevent it going forward. Next slide, please. Transparency. So your supplier would like to understand, same as you, what would be their revenue. They would like to know how they're going to count and report to their board about their company revenue. This is very fair request. However, in many cases, we struggle to provide binding forecast, and therefore we recommend to share non-binding forecast, which is also much better than nothing, because we have to keep things visible. You cannot issue PO to supplier and say, I need it tomorrow because this is a huge impact on my revenue, while the lead time is 100 days. You need to understand that probably there is a low possibility that you will get it. Also, in some cases, they may have an inventory, but forecast is very important. Keep the things visible and ask to show visibility to you as well. For instance, you can share raw material. Ask supplier to show, do they have enough raw material to support your parts? You can also work on the agreement related to Kanban or, open POs that can be actually like a blank order. There are several options. But bottom line, keep the things visible. Include your roadmap. Sometimes our roadmap may be changing. All suppliers want to hear what would be the roadmap. And why? Because everyone want to take part. They would like to take part in MPI programs. It's very important. Why? Because they would like to grow together with you. As more as visible you will keep it for your partners, better, and I would say not just price, but better interaction and better options you will get back from them. It is okay to say, we have a problem and we need your advice. Again, it is super important that we will work as a team. I truly believe that when I have a real partner, it's okay that I will call and say, I have a problem. It's my fault, but I really need your help to fix it. I don't need to convince him that it was his fault just in order to get support. This is the way how you build level of trust and transparency between you both. Next slide, please. Have shared goals. So guys, the KPI, key performance indicator, very important. In each and every facility, we have KPI. Each one of us driving our own KPI. This is part of our goals. This is how we measure our team. This is how our leaders measure us. It's very important. This is the performance. Popular KPI could be defective on arrival, which is before, how well we deliver, quality product to our end customer. On time to promise is, for instance, you measure percentage of delivery to customer on time, and on-time delivery where you measure actual delivery to the factory from suppliers. It also could be very connected because in many cases you will not deliver to your customer because you didn't deliver to your factory on time. And each and every factory have their own lead time based on capacity that they have to count in order to produce on time. Being a customer doesn't mean you have the best tools and methods. Share best practice. And I think this is also what we're doing here, which is very important. That's why I'm happy to take part and also in the future meetings. I believe that as more you share, more you get, and we always learn. So therefore, your supplier is a friend number one that you can share your feedback and get it back. Next slide, please. Face-to-face importance. You know, body language, you can read books about it, but basically experience coach you a lot on this topic. You can simply see during the face-to-face meeting, whenever you say something which is not really well received, you can immediately see it based on the body language. And therefore, it's very important to have face-to-face meetings, but even before that, you have to be prepared. Prepared based on the also slides and a few comments that I provided before. But during the face-to-face, what is important actually? You can observe and learn the work environment. In many cases, you may hear, great stories about the environment, about the supplier performance, and then you can come and see completely different things. Therefore, observe and learn. Learn around you, see, understand by simple questions related to capabilities of machines in this specific manufacturing house. You can simply understand whether the supplier really can make what they commit or not. Because if you don't have the tools, then the following question will be how you can make it. Face-to-face in manufacturing location, this is exactly what I just mentioned, is super important. In some cases, we are working with distributors. It's a little bit more challenging to understand whether the distributor is indeed a partner, but because you don't see the facility, you can see a very small place, like a store that receive material, maintain some material for you, and then just sell based on your needs. I can tell you that my personal advice in such situation would be, first of all, follow procurement policy, which is supplier selection. Even in this case, it's very important to create a list of several suppliers. It's also very healthy for good competition. And then pick the one based on the several parameters, includes specifically for distributor, how much inventory they can own and keep for you, and how big their warehouse. This is, for instance, very simple parameter. Ask questions related to process, cycle time, and manufacturing capabilities. Again, this is the best trigger to understand actually whether everything that you got as part of the promises during the face-to-face meeting is reliable. Pay attention to machines that you see in the house, and you can simply see also what capacity based on machines in-house supplier can make. Always ask questions. Question is always good. Next slide, please. Have tactical buyers act strategically. In modern world, I would say it's not enough just to issue PO and forget about. It's very important that actually the first contact person will be buyer. And it's very important that buyers will visit supplier. You cannot just hold buyer in the room next to the phone and say, okay, call check where is the parts. Therefore, I really recommend that buyers will actually visit supplier, that they will be more engaged. First of all, you can save money by count your buyers as strategic buyers when they will not just issue PO. They will actually monitor, they will actually address problems, or be at least the first contact point for problems so they can connect with the relevant department. But for them, I think it's also very important to be engaged. You know, as more interest you will add to your team, better effect you will get back. If your expectation will be simply just pick up the phone and call suppliers to check the delivery date, then probably you don't need a buyer, you need administrator. Buyer can and need to do more. Your job is not done after material arrival. You have to also build a relationship. You will build a relationship, you will be very successful and actually save time for commodity managers, for procurement engineering, because these folks will concentrate on their job rather than just material. Let them make decisions. Don't be afraid to let them make decisions. Let them be empowered to make decisions when we have a problem. Believe it or not, guys, but I have a very good experience because I led the purchasing team in Israel and also here in US. And I realized that when people allowed to make their own decision while they have this interaction with supplier, then supplier understand that they can work with the buyers and get much more from them rather than PO. They can actually work with the buyer on any other topic except price. And therefore, I really recommend that our buyers, if you guys think that they can just issue PO, I believe that by several coaching sessions and by engagement with other departments, you can make your buyers strategic, not just tactical. Next slide, please. Use productivity as part of NEGO. So we all know that while you manage supplier, annual cost saving is very important. Also, you know, in many cases, we may run into several scenarios. For instance, like we have now Trump tariff, that it's even more challenging now because suppliers may even increase the cost. But therefore, I really recommend to use productivity. BOM cost optimization is a win-win result during the annual negotiation. Let your supplier to provide ideas how we can reduce the BOM cost, and then evaluate it together with your R&D team. Again, work as one team, but let them provide these ideas. So my recommendation is very simple. You set the goal, but this goal can be driven by productivity. So maybe in this year, it will be less, but rolling every year, you will achieve this goal if you will define that this goal will be driven by productivity. So you can say, next year I would like 5%. This is the project that we need to run together, assuming this is accepted by your R&D team and recommended by supplier. And then you plan and you deliver together. Believe me, once you engage supplier that it will be part of the NEGO, supplier will be much more interested to support this type of activity rather than straightforward reduction. Productivity needs to be managed like a project. Include budget, resources, and timeline. It's not just a simple project. You cannot throw it on supplier and say, okay, 5%, make sure it's done by next year. Not at all. You have to manage it like a project together. You don't need maybe too many people for that, but the key functions for productivity have to be engaged if you want to make it successful. Next slide, please. So here, guys, we came to question and answer, and I will appreciate to hear your feedback and your question, and thank you.
Thank you, Alex. We really enjoyed your presentation. Before I go out and check the chat line of questions submitted, Do we have any live questions? Again, it is *6 to unmute your line and go ahead with your questions, or a reminder that you can also click anywhere on this last slide, then you will see how to make a comment, so you can type your question if wished. So again, any live questions? Okay, Alex, we've received several questions during your presentation. Keep in mind that these questions came in throughout your presentation, so you may have touched on these, but I'll ask them all anyway, just in case there's something you would like to add to or elaborate on. Our first question from a member: what do you think are some of the most common errors procurement teams make?
Thank you for the question. It's actually a very good question. I believe that the most common errors that we make, so number one is that we think, as I mentioned, that we write 100% in what we're doing, and we don't consider other side option. Second is when we're driving our requirements in some cases without providing any visibility ahead. And the third is, I also discussed it during the presentation, is the productivity. We have to work on it together. If we will drive supplier to productivity without hearing their feedback, this productivity will be probably one-time projects. If we will listen to them and hear their feedback, then our productivity will grow, and we will grow together. We'll help them to grow with their sub-tier suppliers. Hopefully,
okay, thank you.
The question.
Thank you. Our next question a member asked: it seems that if you are going to promise that your company will pay on time, your finance team has to be committed to that effort. So who do you need to talk to before you start making promises to suppliers?
So, very good question. Thank you very much. Typically, when you have a payment term agreement with supplier, your finance by default already know what would be the payment term, because you have agreed payment terms that actually driven by finance and aligned with your P&L. Therefore, when you're going to the supplier, you already know what is your max and what is your min that you have to achieve during this discussion. And within this limit, you can agree with supplier about the payment terms, and therefore you can make a commitment for payment. Again, as I mentioned, in some cases, there are exceptions as a result of errors or as a result of some unexpected mistakes with the bank account, etc. But mainly, it should be very limited, and the majority should pass according to commitment.
Okay, thank you. Our next question a member asked: if you have made demands of a supplier and made promises of your own in exchange, how do you handle it if your company's strategy or circumstances change and you can no longer do what you promised?
This is a very good question. I can tell you that it's already happened to me in my career. And I can tell you, first of all, it is very important that you will have a good contract, always. Your contract needs to cover this sort of scenarios in the beginning when you set the expectation. For instance, I can give you an example. So I had a supplier that we agreed that I'm allowed to change my forecast every 2 months. But during the rest of time, it needs to be frozen. This is just an example of agreement that you have in place. On the other hand, I probably believe that you refer to some unexpected business issue that you got, and therefore you have to inform your suppliers. But in this case, my recommendation will be also to be transparent with supplier, which means you have two options here. Option number one would be try to push out your orders that you have with supplier, or maybe it depends what sort of business this supplier is driving and what value. And then maybe you can actually, if you are working in a big company, you can maybe help with cash in order to keep this supplier, because maybe it will be even much cheaper than qualified new one in 1 year while your business will be frozen. And second will be recommendation, again, come to business agreement with the supplier. So if you did not create a contract in the beginning and you don't have such option, then I still believe that it will be good to negotiate, because even though in many cases the orders are NCNR, non-cancelable, not returnable, there is still room for negotiation, because most of the supplier doesn't really want that you will say, okay, I don't have a parts today, let's shut down the business. This supplier in many cases will be interested to be with you tomorrow, and same as they may have a problem, today maybe we have a problem. It all depends how the level of relationship you set up in the beginning, and it's simply unexpected problem that may happen and you have to work on it together.
Okay, thank you. And our last question a member asked, what are you most likely to see if your relationship with a supplier is falling apart, and then what do you suggest doing about it?
So I think that visibility and transparency is very important. If you see that it doesn't really help, and again, you are disappointed, and I believe, first of all, you have to understand what kind of business this supplier is driving for you, and in some cases consider maybe second source, just in order to be on the safe side. Second source in some cases will be very healthy regardless if you have a good partnership or not. For major components that you're buying, have second source, it's probably a must, because you don't want to put, all the eggs in one basket. You always have to mitigate the risk and have always plan B available. But I believe actually that in second source, I think it's good if you can develop it in a timely manner. However, whenever you don't have a time and you have this problem that you have to address immediately, communication, this is the key. I am personally very much people person, and I really believe in communication. I think that in many cases, sometimes that maybe we did not explain well, somebody else from your company will be able to explain better. So it's all about communication, and in the end of the day, I'm sure that you guys will be able to find the right formula. But I really hope that you won't have such situation. Also in procurement world, there is never say never. Thank you very much for your time today.
All right, Alex, I think we have covered everyone's questions. Do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom you would like to share with the listeners before we end our summit today?
I actually just wanted to thank everyone for your time, and I enjoyed to do this presentation today and share my experience. I think it's a great opportunity, and I really hope that I will continue enjoying it in the future. And thank you for Procurement Summit for inviting me. Again, it's a great pleasure, and really much appreciated. And I wish all the best luck. Thank you.
Okay, Alex. On behalf of all of the executives on the line, I would like to thank you for sharing such powerful ideas and key thoughts with us today. Your involvement and dedication to our profession sets a high benchmark for others to follow. For all of the participants on today's call, Thank you for your continued membership and insightful questions for today's speaker. The meeting is now officially concluded. Alex, thank you so much again, and everyone have a great day.